Good evening. It is my pleasure to be here, as always. I love coming and speaking here, and I love the relationship our two churches have. I love the relationship that Andrew and I have, and so it's my honor to be here tonight, and I'm just thankful to be with you. I wrote a song several years ago that really goes with what I'm going to be preaching on tonight, and so I'm going to play it for you. It was written during a time when I was doubting. I was having trouble with my faith. It wasn't as strong as it was. I was wondering what God was doing in my life. I was kind of in between churches at the time, or about to leave one and start another, a different church, a different appointment, and so wasn't sure exactly what God was doing. And so it led me to a place of doubt that I'm thankful for now, but in the middle of it, it was difficult. I know some of you probably experienced similar things. And so this song was one of the things that was born out of it. And so it's called His Holy Hill, but I like to call it Sometimes, because sometimes I feel the way this song is sung. So anyway, it's called His Holy Hill. Sometimes I don't know where to turn, but I know that my soul within me burns. And sometimes I don't understand your ways, but I know that you're with me each step of the way. So tell me, where is my life headed? Am I where I need to be? Should I count my many blessings or beware of the raging sea? You have brought me this far. Are you finished with me now? There has to be more, but I don't know when, where, or how. All I want to be is in the center of your will. To the Lord I cry aloud. Will He answer from His holy hill? Sometimes I want to know the future, but I know, oh yes, I know you have your plans. And sometimes I worry about my kids, but I know that you hold them in your hands. So tell me, where is my life headed? Am I where I need to be? Should I cherish every moment or long for eternity? You have brought me this far. Are you finished with me now? There has to be more, but I don't know when, where, or how. All I want to be is in the center of your will. To the Lord I cry aloud. Will He answer from His holy hill? Well, I am thankful. It's only sometimes that I feel this way. For the joy comes in the morning, and with praise I start this day. It doesn't matter where my life is headed, I'm right where I need to be. In the presence of your glory, I'm down on bended knee. You have brought me this far, and you're not finished with me yet. There will always be more, but your words I won't forget. All I want to be center of your will. To the Lord I cried aloud, and He has answered from His holy hill. To the Lord I cried aloud, and He has answered from His holy hill. Let me begin by saying again how happy I am to be here and how just an incredible relationship that our two churches have shared for long before I was here, but just how proud I am of that and how awesome it is. And I want to kind of use the song from just a few moments ago of thinking about our faith and sometimes how it's difficult to know what God is up to and to understand that, and to dive right into another psalm that is taken this is the 73rd psalm, and it's kind of ironic. In this psalm, you're going to read, or you're going to hear that the author of this psalm almost slipped and fell, okay? Now, we've all had slips and falls. Right now, my family is dealing with a very difficult slip and fall. My wife, 2 Saturdays ago, slipped getting into the hammock and broke her ankle very badly. Had surgery this past week, all the pins and the rods and the plates and all that, it's all in there now. It's a part of her now. So when I was preparing for tonight, before this happened actually, several weeks ago when I was thinking about what to talk about, I had no idea just how much slipping and falling would actually be a danger in my own life and in the lives of the ones I love. So this really kind of hits home tonight, but we're not actually talking about slipping and falling in the sense of falling off a stage or falling getting into a hammock or anything like that. We're talking about spiritually slipping and falling. And so tonight I'd like to read just the first half of this psalm at first, and then we're going to talk about that, and then we will talk about the second half a little bit later. Truly God is good to Israel, to those who are pure in heart. But as for me, my feet had almost stumbled, my steps had nearly slipped, for I was envious of the arrogant when I saw the prosperity of the wicked. For they have no pangs until death. Their bodies are fat and sleek. They are not in trouble as others are. They are not stricken like the rest of mankind. Therefore pride is their necklace. Violence covers them as a garment. Their eyes swell out through fatness. Their hearts overflow with follies. They scoff and speak with malice. They loftily they threaten oppression. They set their mouths against the heavens, and their tongue struts against the earth. Therefore His people turn back to them, and no fault is found in them. They say, how can God know? Is there knowledge in the Most High? Behold, these are the wicked, always at ease. They increase in riches. All in vain I have kept my heart clean and washed my hands in innocence. For all the day long I have been stricken and rebuked every morning. If I had said, I will speak this way, I would have betrayed the generation of your children. I want to stop right there, because this is a story that we can all relate to. How many of you have ever looked upon somebody who is enjoying prosperity and success, and yet they have no regard for God, no regard for faith, no regard for love even? They simply are wicked. You just know it. And yet they are prosperous. Nothing bad seems to happen to them. They seem to get their way. They seem to be able to abuse others and take advantage of others, and God does nothing. For me, this hit home when I was fresh out of college. I had just gotten married. We were a young, excited couple. We were working at a church in Greer. We were fortunate enough to get a house with this church, and we didn't know at the time how difficult it would be to live right in the parking lot. But we had a house with this church, and so I was doing youth ministry and leading the praise and worship, and it was an exciting time. We were building programs within the church, and it was very good. And we were still doing Bible. Do you remember, husbands and wives, what it was like to read the Bible together? I hope you still do that, but it gets harder when you have children later on to do that. But we were still, we're in the throes of learning who we were, learning who we were before God. It was a great time. We were both involved in ministry. We were both, leading groups at church, and it was exciting. And so prayerfully, we decided it was time to start a family. And so we began to try to have children. And we got pregnant first month we were trying, which I know that's not a lot of people's experience. But man, we were so excited. And we were, calling everybody. I'll never forget, calling my parents. And she called her parents at the same time I called my parents. And it was just this exciting moment when they're going to be grandparents and, and all this. And so it was so exciting. And we told everybody and we loved it. And we just kind of were so high on the feeling of, man, everything's going right, And at the 3-month ultrasound, there was no heartbeat. And we were crushed. We were devastated. All the hopes and everything. And little did we know at the time that that's actually more common than what you would think. A lot more common than what you would think. But we didn't know that. And we were crushed and devastated by this blank screen on an ultrasound. Who would have ever thought? And I remember the technician saying, I'm going to give you guys a minute and then the doctor will be in. And then what follows is a blurry of procedures and other stuff. And so this began a rather difficult journey for us. We conceived again fairly quickly after the allotted time you were supposed to wait before trying again. And we did, and then that ended in another miscarriage, even sooner than 3 months. And then we went through another conception, and man, the tests were great, everything looked good, and the hormones seemed to be off. And after about 3 weeks of going in and having blood work done every couple of days and everything, it was an ectopic pregnancy. So now not only were we not going to have a child for the 3rd time after conceiving, we also were going to have surgery. That has to be taken care of. That can't be left in there. It can ruin any chance you might have of having children in the future. An ectopic pregnancy, for those who don't know, is when the actual egg is fertilized in the fallopian tube. It's a very dangerous thing. And so we had to have surgery. And we were in the midst of this. And I knew in my youth group that there was a young lady who had gotten pregnant at the age of 15, and her daddy made her get an abortion. And I could not fathom that in my head. Here we are, we're doing everything right. Here we are, we're doing everything we're supposed to do. We are devoting our lives to God. We are trying to train other people and disciple other people. We're doing everything He's asked us to do, and we can't keep a child. And then this family's wantonly throwing one away. That was more than, I was so upset. I was like the psalmist at a point where my feet were going to slip. My faith was going to crumble. How could this be? How could this happen? And I'm willing to bet that there are those in here tonight who've had similar experiences, maybe not with miscarriages in children, but you've been through things in your life. You relate to that. Where you looked at it and you went, how come I'm doing everything you want me to do, God, and I'm having to deal with this mess, and these people over here have no regard for you, and they've got an easy life. Nothing's going wrong for them. They're benefiting from their sinfulness. And so I was stuck in a place where, and what I didn't know at the time would be an incredible moment of learning and of God teaching me something. And this psalm is one of the things that helped me through this. So much so that I've actually done youth retreats based off of this psalm. This song that I wrote is partially based off of this psalm because of what happens in the second half. Whenever we face times where we doubt or we have frustration with God and what He's doing, I'm reminded of the second half of this psalm. Verse 16 says, but when I thought how to comprehend this, all that he had talked about before, it seemed to me a wearisome task. I have been there. I have thought and thought and thought so much that I got tired of thinking about what it is God's up to, why it is things work out the way they do. But here's the big but moment, the big until. Verse 17 says, I did that. I thought about how to understand this until it was wearisome to me, until I went into the sanctuary of God. And that totally revolutionized my way of thinking, and I think it can revolutionize everyone's way of thinking. When it comes to doubt, when it comes to fear and frustration and not understanding what God is doing, the first place to start is by going into the sanctuary. That's when our perspective begins to change. He goes on to say, then I discerned what their end was. Truly, you set them in slippery places. You make them fall to ruin. How they are destroyed in a moment, swept away utterly by terrors, like a dream when one awakes. O Lord, when you rouse yourself, you despise them as phantoms. When my soul was embittered, when I was pricked in my heart, I was brutish and ignorant. I was like a beast towards you. Nevertheless, I am continually with you. You hold me by my right hand. You guide me with your counsel, and afterward you will receive me to glory. Whom have I in heaven but you? And there is nothing on earth that I desire besides you. My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. For behold, those who are far from you will perish. You put an end to everyone who is unfaithful to you. But for me, it's good to be near God. I have made the Lord God my refuge, that I may tell of all your works. I can't really say it better than the psalmist. It was when I went and understood from this psalm that it's about your perspective. We have to stop looking at the wicked people. That's the problem. We tend to look at them when we should be looking at God. We tend to focus on them and how they're getting away with this or that, how come they don't have these problems and all that. We tend to focus on that when we should be focusing on God and what He's doing. In His perfect timing, He gave to me a son and a daughter whom I love very much, and they are beautiful, and I can't imagine it any other way now. But in the midst of it, the thing that I learned is that we must be drawn back towards God. Our eyes must turn from watching what the wicked are doing and watching what God is doing in our lives. He's got a plan for them, as the psalmist says. He's going to take care of that. They won't do it forever. They'll perish. But my glory is in being with God forever. That's our hope. That's our perspective. So where does that perspective happen? It happens here, at church. That's where it happens. Until I went into the sanctuary, I thought that way. When I went into the sanctuary, things changed for me. And that's the way it should be for all of us. Now, I'm biased a little bit because I believe our sanctuary is the most beautiful sanctuary that I've ever been in. Of course, I've said that about all the churches I've served. But it really is. And I'm sure you guys feel that this sanctuary is the most beautiful. I know you guys have y'all got some renovations coming up too, I believe. And that's important. Sanctuaries are the place where God people gathers. I'll never forget, in this little country church that I pastored one time, I was about, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 minutes into the service. We had sung our first hymn, and I was taking prayer requests. And I looked up, and hanging from a chandelier were 2 bats. 2 bats. And, of course, the rest of the service, I was just trying, I even lowered my voice. I mean, I'm pretty sure bats are deaf, but anyway, I didn't want to do anything to disturb them, because that would have been something if the bats had started to fly around in the middle of the service. That could have really, So, but sanctuaries, that sanctuary gave me a lot of good memories and a lot of good laughs for that reason and many others as well. But sanctuaries are a place where God's people gather to experience God together. And that can happen in this sanctuary, that can happen over at Emma-Gray, that can happen outdoors, that can happen on the lawn right outside. It's wherever God's people gather. And that is a reminder that we all need. Listen, there are still wicked people who are seemingly prospering right now. They seem to be prospering. And there are still good, righteous, saved people, people who have a saving relationship with Jesus Christ, like those gathered here tonight, who are dealing with a big mess. They are. They have a lot of trouble in their life. They've got broken relationships. They've got financial issues. They've got spiritual issues. That it doesn't make sense. I can't clear it up for you. All I can tell you is to turn your focus to God And the way we do that is by gathering together to meet in His presence. Whether it's here or whether it's at Emigre or wherever it is. Gathering together to meet in God's presence with each other. And this is why I think this is timely for tonight. And I tell my congregation the same thing. It's time to come out of this pandemic. It's time to start placing a priority on meeting together. I'm not talking about just going to church on Sunday morning. I'm talking about doing life together again. I'm talking about meeting together with the purpose of experiencing God, whether it's small groups or whether it's on Sunday night or Sunday morning. We have to get back to that. The sanctuary is the place where it all makes sense. There's a lot of people who are hurting. There's a lot of people who are asking why God. There's a lot of people who don't understand what He's doing in their lives. And just like the psalmist and just like me, and I know you too, our experience is that it's here in this place with other people who believe in God and believe in Jesus that we can find the right perspective to deal with those moments when we question what it is He's doing, when our faith is trembling and in danger of slipping and falling. So maybe you need to understand out of this tonight that it's okay to question God. He's big God. He can handle our questions. The opposite of faith is not doubt. Doubt and faith, throughout the Scriptures, they go hand in hand. You know the man who comes to Jesus and says, I believe, help my unbelief. Faith is not the opposite. Doubt is not the opposite of faith. That's not the way that works. He's a big God. He can handle our doubts, and maybe you need to hear that. Maybe you need to focus less on everyone else tonight. Maybe you need to focus more on God and more on what He's doing in your life and what He's trying to teach you. Focus less on everybody else and what it seems like He's doing to everybody else. And maybe we all need to realize the importance of sanctuary. As we move away from the quarantine and the ropes and the masks and all that stuff and every other pew, we need to really place a priority on sanctuary, on meeting together with people who believe in order to experience God together. That's when we find that our perspective has changed. It's going to be vital moving forward for all of our churches to keep our feet from slipping by meeting together and holding each other up, watching out for each other. And when we look back on these times in our lives when our faith was slipping, when it didn't seem like things were going to work out, or when we weren't sure what God was doing, or sure we didn't think He knew what He was doing, then maybe we can say, I'm thankful it's only sometimes that I feel this way. And with the psalmist we can proclaim, for me it is good to be near to God. I have made Him my refuge, and I will tell others of all His works. Amen.